So in continuation, we'll be looking at this branch of mathematics called geometry, where our focus is going to be on plane shapes. Plane shapes, looking at two-dimensional shapes and three-dimensional shapes. You should recall that a two-dimensional shape is a shape that you can only draw, while a three-dimensional shape is a shape that can sit on its own or you can carry. That means they are movable, but two-dimensional shapes are shapes you can draw on a surface. The major objective of this topic is to look at the properties of solid shapes such as perpendicular and parallel lines, faces and edges, apex, vertex, to mention but few, even the base, and so on and so forth. So as said earlier on, geometry is a part of mathematics that focuses on shapes and lines. So when you look at shapes that are two-dimensional shapes, they are made up of various lines that can be used to draw that shape. As you can see on this screen, you can see lines, cylinder, a shape that looks like a diamond, and so on. You're going to see them as a course of the lesson. So geometry focuses on shapes and line, irrespective of the shape. Our first focus here is going to be on two-dimensional figures or two-dimensional shapes. Those shapes are shapes that are simply flat. That means that they look what? Flat. Example of two-dimensional shapes are triangle, rectangle, circle, square. You can obviously draw them or you can paste them on a surface, but you can't carry them. And our second focus here is three-dimensional shapes or figures. That means they are shapes that looks like they can stand on their own. When you look at a cylinder, it can stand on its own. When you look at a cube, it can stand on its own. When you look at a cuboid or a regular solid like pentagon, they can stand on their own. These are three-dimensional shapes. You can carry on, they can stand on their own. Looking at two-dimensional shapes, these are shapes that are flat and can only be drawn on paper. They have two dimensions, length and breadth. Maybe that is just the major reason why it is called two-dimensional shape. They have two dimensions, length and breadth. They are sometimes called plane shapes. So you can look at this square here is a two-dimensional shape with a regular polygon with four sides equal at 90-degree right angles each. On a square, opposite side of every square are equal. Opposite side of every square are equal. A square is a two-dimensional shape with four equal sides and four corners. Look at it, four equal sides and four corners. Examples of square in our daily lives are a window, some floor tiles, and some ceiling tiles. The next here is a rectangle. A rectangle is a two-dimensional shape with four corners and two pairs of opposite sides equal. Four corners and two pairs of opposite sides equal. Equal parallel sides as well. The sides meet at right angle triangle. So the opposite sides are parallel to each other and they are equal. Example of rectangle on our daily activities are things like a door, a piece of paper, even some tiles as well. Next example here on a two-dimensional shape is a circle. A circle is a shape with no corner or edges. Circle in daily activities is a clock, a ball, a sphere, and so on and so forth. Another example here is a semicircle. A semicircle is a two-dimensional shape that is exactly half of a circle. Example of semicircles include things like half of a pizza and half of a pie. Half of a pizza, half of a pie are good examples of semicircle. A look at things that makes up a two-dimensional shapes are size. For instance, the lines you can trace and count on the outside of a two shape are called what? Size. E.g. or example, a triangle has three sides, a square has what? Four sides, a rectangle have four sides, all triangles have three sides irrespective of the type of triangle. In that light, a two-dimensional shape with three straight sides and corner is called a triangle. So in the category of the two-dimensional shapes you just learned, they are all categorized as polygons. They are all categorized as what? Polygon. So two-dimensional shapes that have three or more sides made from straight lines are called what? polygons. Moving into three-dimensional shapes. Three-dimensional shapes are shapes that are solid or hollow. That means they have holes. You could hold them in your hand and you can drop them. They have three dimensions, basically the length, width, and what? Height. They have three dimensions, different from two dimensions. They have the length, the width, and so basically all you should know here about three-dimensional shapes is that they are all solid because they are heavy and you can carry, and they occupy space. So they are all what? Solid with length, width, and height. Example of a three-dimensional shape include shapes like the cube, the cylinder, the sphere, the cone, the prism. Now let's look at some characteristics of three-dimensional shapes. But before we go into that, there are some basic things we should know, like the surfaces, the edges, the vertices. These are things that you can know before you can actually tell about the characteristics of what some three-dimensional. One of those things you should know here is the surface. The surface is a curved part of a three-dimensional shape. Example, cylinder and cone have surfaces. The face is that part of a three-dimensional shape that is flat. Example, a cube will have 6 faces and a cuboid will also have 6 faces. The bottom face of a three-dimensional shape is called the base. The bottom face of a three-dimensional shape is called the base. That part is that part that can sit on a table. The line where two faces meet on a three object or a three-dimensional shape object is called the edges. Example, a cube has 4 edges. While the point where 3 or more edges touch is called corner. The point where 3 or more edges touch is called corner. This cube you're seeing here has 12 corners all together. 12 corners all together. So vertices and corners can be used interchangeably. So the point where 3 or more edges meet is called vertex. This cube as you're seeing here has 12 vertices all together. 12 vertices all. So moving into the characteristics of a three-dimensional shape in proper, a cube is a solid figure with 3 equal dimensions of length, width, and height. It has 6 square faces, it has 8 vertices, it has 12 edges. The faces must be equal. In a cube, the faces must be equal. Why the difference between a cube and a cuboid is that of the cuboid, the faces are not equal. It's only the opposite faces that are equal. So a cuboid is a solid figure with 6 faces which are what? Rectangles. It has 6 regular faces, 8 vertices, and 12 edges. So example of cube in our daily life is a box, a block, a dice, a Maggie cube, etc. So in summary, a cube has 6 square faces, all same size, 12 edges, 8 corners. 6 same faces, all same size, 12 edges, 8 corners. Corners or vertices. Some of these faces are parallel, some of the edges are parallel, some of the faces are perpendicular to each other, some of the edges are perpendicular to each other. The next in line on a three-dimensional shape is a cylinder. A cylinder is a three-dimensional shape with one curved surface and 2 equal circles on its ends. A cylinder has 2 faces, 1 surface, 0 edges, and 0 corners. A cylinder is a hollow shape that has 2 equal circles on its ends. Examples of cylinders on our daily activities are a soap can, a roll of toilet tissue. This makes it rollable on the floor. It's a three-dimensional shape. The next here is cone. A cone is a three-dimensional shape made up of a circular base, a curved surface that comes to a point at the top called vertex. A cone has 0 edges and 0 corner. That vertex is also called the apex. Examples of cone include ice cream cone, a party hat, a spinning top, a thatched roof, Christmas cap, and so on and so forth. Next on three-dimensional shape is a sphere. A sphere is a perfectly round three-dimensional shape like a ball. It has only one curved surface. A sphere has 0 faces, 0 edges, and 0 vertices. So a sphere is that 3D shapes you can hold on your hand. It can actually roll. A sphere has no corners or edges because it's sphere. That's why it can roll so fast. Examples of sphere in our daily activities include balls, a globe, and a... Now, in conclusion, you know about two-dimensional and three-dimensional shapes respectively. Recall that a two-dimensional shape or figure are plane figures. They are flat and on the paper. You can either draw it or paste them. While a three-dimensional figures or shapes are solid figures. They are the types that you can carry in your hand. They look like they could stand up and you can touch them properly.